Good morning, everyone. This is John Sprovieri, Chief Editor of Assembly. Welcome to this online case study, How Manufacturers Can Digitize Assembly. This event is sponsored by Pico MES. Wherever and however you're joining us, thank you for making us a part of your day. Today's presenters are Ryan Kuhlenbeck, co-founder and CEO of Pico MES, and Greg Whitt, process improvement manager at MORryde International. Now, this is a live program, folks, so please do submit questions for our speakers. Later in the program, we will address as many as possible. Today's event is being recorded and archived on our website, assemblymag.com. And now, without further ado, I will turn it over to Ryan and Greg. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you, John. Appreciate the intro. Glad to be here today. Myself and Greg will give a quick update here on kind of how some of the neat stuff that we've done here at Pico and how it deploys out into different factories, and I hope you enjoy the journey. So with that, let's dig in. A quick intro to Pico. Our MES system is kind of a new take on how factory operations can be performed, designed to really empower the teams of all factories, not just large enterprises, but also small and mid-sized factories along the way. Our approach is attempting to bring a platform of solutions, which means almost nothing to most people. But what we mean by that is the opportunity for the domain experts that we believe exist in every small and mid-sized factory, the people that run the shop floor and really understand how that systems function and what needs to be done. How can you arm them with an array of potential solutions they can bring to bear to solve problems every day, quickly, easily, and affordably? Whether it's training new employees or managing high mix environments, how do you guide people through step-by-step operations so it's easy for them to perform their tasks without taking on risk because they might be new to the job or new to the station, all the way up through complex integrations with hundreds of families of different tools. Right? All of these are in place to solve problems, right? To improve efficiency and to allow businesses to improve what they do. That's what Pico brings to bear, plus all the fun enterprise integrations with ERPs and PLMs and all the other things necessary to drive the business forward. A quick background or history on Pico MES. We've been around for 4.5 years at this point, but the team's been together for many years before that. We come out of the automotive industry, specifically big auto all the way down to smaller motorcycle manufacturing, and then have a very strong tech background intermingled with it. We think that's a really key piece. When you talk to a Pico representative, it's somebody who has run a shop floor, not someone who may not have a deep understanding of what people are trying to achieve. And then we are venture backed. We have some really great investors, including very large manufacturers like Schneider Electric and Bosch, that have allowed us to accelerate product development faster than what we would be able to do with normal funding. So, and then we are focused on discrete manufacturing, which is people who make things, not chemicals or factories like that. The different types of industries that we support, the most popular obviously are in the discrete space or automotive, aerospace, industrial equipment. We see quite a bit of traction in the electric vehicles side of the house. It's a specialty of ours, especially in the lithium-ion battery world. But lots of these different types of technologies can be brought to bear inside of these types of factories. And with that, I want to try to shift it away from Pico, if you will. I want to talk as much as we can with our friend Greg here about how actual factories use technology to solve problems, right? Instead of buzzword bingo with, whatever the industry 4.0 term of the day is, we wanted to actually just try to make it real for people. How can you move forward? What should it be like when you have a digital backbone in your factory that can allow you to improve your operations quickly and easily so that the factories can move forward? So with that, I'll start to introduce Greg here in MORryde Industries, one of our customers in the RV space. And kind of the theme for today that we're touching on is, what is it like today? What was it like before a factory could implement digital technology? And what is it like after? What's the journey between those 2 points? And what's the value that the business side of it achieves? Whether it's integrating tools for torque control, or trying to remove the tribal knowledge barriers, or even just having a tactical data set that engineers can use to improve. That's our focus. That's our goal for improvements. So with that, I want to introduce Greg from MORryde. Greg, if you want to say hello, and we can have you give a chance to introduce MORryde and talk a little bit about how you use technology.
Yeah, thank you, Ryan. Appreciate it. Just a quick introduction to who MORryde is. We service a variety of industries. It's kind of hard to wrap it up in a nutshell, but we're definitely big in the RV space just based on our location, but we do automotive, we do buses, transit, and specialty products, and we also do everything metal fab. And we'll kind of get into that a little bit further on. But MORryde, we strive to be opportunity driven, and to follow the mentality that if it's worth doing right. And there's a mantra that creeps into production facilities of just ship it. And we definitely don't want that driving what we do. And it's a challenge to figure out how do we, so like Ryan said earlier, empower the operators and give them tools so that they can do their job the right way. And that's something that Pico has really, it's been a neat player to add into, or a tool to add to our tool belt. And so what kind of led MORryde as a company to Pico was kind of, they helped us to solve a ongoing quality issue that we had tried some different tools to take care of it, and limited success. But as we were kind of looking for what tools should we try to apply to this, how should we try and take care of this issue, as MORryde, kind of our business case, we want to add things to our library that have a versatile application. RVs in general and metal fabrication, it tends to shift, the landscape shifts quite a bit. And so having something that has a very targeted application is not an ideal situation for us. And then as we press further into the digital age, so to speak, a lot of the equipment that we utilize, whether it's flatbed lasers, tube lasers, CNC mills, and even torque connected tooling, a lot of equipment manufacturers are now having an accompanying software option, so to speak, or even some accompanying software that you have to learn specific to their product. And so we as a company try to limit the different softwares that our admin type people have to learn and have to interact with, because it's cumbersome. And so Pico being an opportunity to talk to and communicate with a lot of different pieces of equipment and have one interface, that was something we were very interested in as we were looking at Pico, and it's been pretty fantastic to see how that's been working out for us. But Pico promised, kind of as we were looking at them and trialing out the software, an ERP integration and the connectivity to a lot of tools and equipment all in one software interface. And so that's kind of what we were very interested in as we were trying it out. Our first targeted application.
Yeah, Greg, I'll mention too on one thing. It's effectively all an MES can do for you, right? This is one thing that I think people miss, is the goal is to allow domain experts to determine what to do. If the software is holding you back because you have to learn how to code something, or you have to learn a new interface because of 16 different brands coming together, then it's slowing you down. But if we can eliminate that repeated work of every person trying to learn how to integrate this tool, or how to integrate that piece of equipment, or learn the software and put it into one common quick interface, I think that's one of the secrets that we're really able to achieve in our different approach, instead of forcing everybody into OPC servers or whatever it might be. So
for sure. Anyway. Our first application, and I'll talk to that here in a second, it was chassis modification. It's a pretty large segment of what our business does. It's kind of complicated and hard to, again, summarize and give you in a quick nutshell, but basically A lot of times we end up stretching chassis, modifying the wheelbase, and so we have fabricators essentially working on a production line that are stripping the chassis, disconnecting all the brake lines, wiring, fuel lines, all that kind of stuff, cutting the frame into two separate sections, welding in a stretch section typically, and then putting it all back together. And then what you see on screen is kind of the end product eventually that gets shipped to our customers for that. And there's a lot going on for the fabricators on the line, and one of the things that was kind of a reoccurring issue, so to speak, was making sure that we had all the fasteners for reinstalling the drive shaft, which has to be removed from the chassis, modified, rebalanced, and then reinstalled with different shim packages and everything else to level that out. So it's kind of complicated. We've got different manufacturers of chassis running through the plant. There's different numbers of fastener counts, carrier bearings, all that kind of stuff, and torque values. And trying to monitor and have that quality assurance was something that had been a challenge to us. And if you've got any exposure to torque tooling, again, a lot of the different manufacturers will have a software package that can accompany their tooling that will give you the ability to almost commit to them as a manufacturer and learn their software package and try and integrate in parallel their software into your production line, production facility. And while we weren't entirely opposed to that, we were a little leery of that. We don't have a high need for torque control tooling. We've got kind of a limited need with some applications. And what Pico really enabled us to do is here's Pico software. It's very light, and then integrating with our ERP system was something that was kind of critical. We needed a seamless solution that was also foolproof for quality assurance, and we needed to integrate the ERP system, have it out of the way, and make it so that the operators don't have a lot of cumbersome software or additional buttons they've got to mess with. And I wish that we could kind of demo how the system ends up working, because when we finally got it off the ground, it's everything that we wanted.
Yeah, and installing drive shaft fasteners requires a unicorn pulse tool that can do high torque without rotating the drive shaft like a DC nut runner. So, luckily
Correct.
for us, it took us less than a week to integrate it. And then now that tool has been used by other customers in Pico, because once it's in our library, it's available for everybody. It's one of the 14 brands of torque tools sitting in there. So
yep.
I'm glad it was able to solve that problem.
Yeah, and now we're at the point that we've got 2,400 chassis running through that line with that tooling through Pico, error-free, and then we have backwards traceability of the torque values of the fasteners that were installed on those drive shafts. Want to move on real quick to kind of just our general assembly, and this is a quick demo video of kind of what Pico software can be used for. And so you can give a lot of details to the operators that we can't put on our prints, and here in a minute I'll kind of show you what they had previously. But if you have quality issues that you want to have pop-ups and different notes to make sure that, hey, this has been an issue for us, make sure that we remember to do this a specific way. If we need to put some quick videos at their fingertips, that's really what we've been able to enable our shop floor to use on a daily basis now. So if we're having issues with potentially fastener count and not utilizing the right number of fasteners, if we want to, we can put a pop-up in that says, hey, tell us how many you used, and we can qualify it. If there's other random issues you may have with how fasteners pull, as far as rivets in our case, we can put that as a pop-up. And then at the end of the build summary, everything that they did, that they interacted with, is logged permanently into the data. And it's really been a game changer for our shop floor. This is what their build screen looks like in our general assembly area, and I'll kind of talk to that a little bit more here. But we've got over 1,000 different assembly part numbers that they're going to run on an annual basis. So there's a really high number of variation, or a high level of variation, and there's some pretty complex things that they assemble. There's also some extremely simple things that they assemble that might just be a bracket with a ball stud, one bolt essentially put into it. And their day varies significantly. But what you see on screen here is just an example of one that's pretty complicated. And previously we had an engineering print that you can see in the top right hand corner, and that's largely what they got on the assembly floor. So there was a level of training and a level of learning that they would get to, kind of particular to a product, that would accompany the engineering print that's going to come with that every single time. But if you have turnover, if you have, we end up with orders of some product that they might get 10 parts ordered once every 3 months. And so when you don't see this on a real regular basis, when it does come back up, trying to remember, hey, how did we do this particular thing last time? What are the nuances that we need to remember? Now we can document all of that, and it doesn't matter who assembles it, and it's all held for us in Pico. Kind of show you another slide here of what it looks like. If you can kind of picture in your mind, these are the parts that they're dealing with on the bottom right, and the print that they had previously on the top right. And then what Pico enables for us is a screen with links, pictures, notations. They can actually see the parts instead of a black and white image, and we can document the knowledge that they had on the production floor for, again, employee turnover, or hey, you know what, the operator that did this last time that's usually pretty good at it, maybe they're out sick, maybe they're busy on working on something else. Well, we don't have to wait for them to finish that job because they're the only ones that know how to do this other one. Anybody can work on this, and whatever quality notes that we need to put with that, packaging information, it's all contained in the software for every time that they build that product. So Pico really
Greg,
saves us quite a bit. Go ahead.
How long does it take you to set up one of these processes in Pico?
Yeah, it varies.
500
it varies on the complexity. Once you get comfortable with it, you can definitely knock one down in an hour or two, and it's really not a whole lot more. I would argue it's almost simpler than trying to do a detailed print and send that to the production floor. And at the end of the day, it's so much better information for the production floor to be able to build what they need to. We've got an internal example kind of a 7-page print that engineering spent quite a bit of time trying to lay out a lot of views. And at the end of the day, when that went to the production floor, they still didn't. They had to call engineering anyway and say, hey, come explain this to us and help us know how to put this together. Whereas now we can apply Pico to it. We can give them, again, colored pictures, video clips, whatever we might need to communicate that to the production floor. And it's not, I'm going to the production floor, I'm going to explain this to you, and if and when this product comes up again, maybe you'll remember it, maybe you won't. It's documented. So the results in general assembly is we now have over 500 processes that we're using in 20 daily operators, 100% integrated with our ERP. It's taking care of our labor transactions, and we don't have to deal with nearly the same issues that we did previously. Another application, it's kind of unique from a torque tool standpoint. We've got some tandem axles or some independent suspension axles that we do, and there's a lot of torque critical fasteners, a wide variety of fasteners, and we are currently doing an alignment process after the installation on the unit. And so we are utilizing Pico to take care of the torque aspect of it, and then also just ensure consistency in our assembly. But to kind of give an idea of what that application requires, we've got a 35 foot-pound bolt that is torque critical. We've got a 250 foot-pound bolt that is also torque critical, all basically right beside each other on the same assembly. There's also a spindle nut torque application that requires a kind of a complex torque it down to 50 foot-pounds. The manufacturer says back that off and then finger tighten that nut. So you have to seat the bearings and everything that goes into that, and then at the same time not have it too tight. And so it's kind of ambiguous as to what is finger tight, but with the torque connected tooling and utilizing Pico, we can set that application. We did set that application up to have the tool run, torque it down to 50 foot-pounds, and then back it off a certain number of degrees. And every single time they run that spindle nut application, it's done the exact same way, and it's eliminated the issues that we had there. And at the end of the day, we have full traceability. It's limited, if not eliminated, our exposure, and it's also enabled us to scale the volume of several different assembly areas, again, while documenting all the data for us. It also enables us to utilize, in the case of the drive shaft and the chassis modification, as well as the independent axle, independent suspension, we can pick whatever tool from whatever manufacturer works best in that instance. We're not committed to Ingersoll Rand, we're not committed to Atlas Copco or Coleco or any of the other major manufacturers, because we're tied in with their software. Pico is our software. They're our go-between and our interface with the tooling, and we have the freedom to pick the best tool for the application. And we're currently using 3 different tooling manufacturers, and we're looking at others, again, depending on the application that we need it for. One thing that I probably didn't emphasize enough too is, in the chassis world, we needed a guarantee that that chassis would not ship and really would not advance past the installation process without all of the fasteners being torqued out appropriately. And because of how Pico has tied into our ERP system, that's a guarantee now. We had looked at potentially, having like lights and warning buzzers on the production floor, that if we didn't get the right fastener count, then that would be the indication and a visual cue that, hey, we got to check something. Well, now you can kind of see here, in a limited way, everything is documented. If you could actually click on these links for the fastener count, it actually, again, it documents the torque value, the angle of rotation permanently, and that's tied to VINs for our chassis and a serial number for our axles. So Ryan, you might want to talk to some of these results a little bit more as well, but in the chassis world, you mentioned earlier, we've got 2,400 chassis modified now with 0 issues. And that's nothing from end user customers, as well as nothing from our OEM manufacturers that sometimes we might have a trip report where, there's vibration or whatever else. All of that is completely eliminated. The other thing that Pico has enabled us to do with the data that we can get out of it and the feedback loop is, pick your application. We can look at, hey, what are the top 10% of assemblies with potentially rate discrepancies that we need to look at, whether that's we need to give the operator some additional training. It just quickly brings right to the surface where you need to spend your time, really, from my perspective as an engineering and a process engineering standpoint. But that's all kinds of different levels between supervision, training. It's fantastic. We've also seen a measurable increase, 50% increase in our production output in different areas where we've applied Pico to. And there's a lot of little details that Pico solves for you, whether it's just a packaging issue. I had on one of the slides earlier just the setup time or the training time. Pico is going to make small improvements in all of those areas. Sometimes it's large improvements. And the end result is we can look at what was our production, what was our labor input, and what was our production output in this particular assembly area. For us, it's kind of our et cetera assembly or our specialty product assembly. And we measurably now have 50% more output now with Pico in place than what we did previously, and we're still looking forward to additional improvements that we're expecting to see there. And mentioned
hopefully
it.
The goal is
backwards traceability.
Yeah, the goal is just to allow problem pops up, solution can be put in place quickly and easily so that you can move forward. I mean, I'm a true believer that if you want to gain 50% in output or 20%, depending on how the factory runs, there's not a single hand grenade solution that just does it for you. It's a series of small gains that add up to very large outputs. And how do you enable a team to do that? That's our goal.
Yep.
So I'm glad to see that
on the
level of results.
Yeah. On the management side, whether we have a customer complaint, customer return, if it comes through sales, whatever it might be, it's, hey, let's make sure we get that added into Pico, and then it doesn't come up as an issue ever again.
Well, Greg, I appreciate it, and we're kind of coming down to the last few minutes here, so I want to give time for some Q&A, but for those that would like to see an interactive tour of Pico, there's a link here. You can follow us on social media. There's contact information below, and we'd love to help however we can.
All right. Well, thank you, gentlemen. We do have a lot of questions coming in and not a lot of time, so I will get right to them. Of course, things cost money. Can you provide? Can Pico provide a ballpark figure for pricing?
Yeah, everything you've seen is at MORryde costs them $37.50 a month. So $3,750. So that's $45,000 a year to see everything deployed. That's it.
Oh, wow, okay.
So our goal is to dramatically drop the cost by not requiring the consultants, by eliminating all the repeated work.
Okay. Here's a question from David for Ryan. Can you modify the parameters directly from Pico? For example, could you change the torque setting on a tool or something like that?
It depends on the brand of the tool and whether they support external parameter modification. So like Atlas Copco, for example, you can change things like that, but some of the other brands of tools don't allow you to change them remotely. In those scenarios, we have kind of guided tutorials for people who may not be as familiar with the other brands of software. Go here, change the value here, and do these things if you need to set it up. And then there's a knowledge center as well for complex joints, things like Belleville washers or some of the anti-strip technology that these torque tools can support. And then other types of tools have different capabilities. So our measurement tools, electrical testers, camera systems. It depends on the tool, but if it's enabled, we enable it.
Okay. Dylan's got a question here for you, for Ryan. And how are build or assembly instructions indexed, and how do you make changes to those in the software?
So each process has a series of steps. The steps are drag and drops, so you can rearrange their order or you can move them to a different process through drag and drops. And then the tools are assigned to the actions that are required inside of the process. So for example, if you change a single rundown of a torque tool and it's used in 20 different processes, that tool's change will proliferate all the way through them automatically by changing it in the tool. And then vice versa, if you need to do a quality check using a particular tool, if that process is used in, let's say, 30 different products, we call them instances, it'll proliferate through them all with one change. It depends on how you're operating the factory. There's a template structure and variant structure as well for high mix environments. But the goal is, again, if we know that it needs to go to multiple places, we push it to multiple places. And then the core indexing is based on the work required to produce the parts. So the series of steps. Follow up on that one if you'd like more information, and sometimes a 5-minute demo can save a lot of words.
Okay. All right. A question for Greg then. I don't want him to feel lonely. Any advice on implementing the software? Any pitfalls? Any tips, tricks, or suggestions at all?
It's a quick process at certain times, and it's also, for us, it's been a pretty big cultural shift, so it kind of takes some time. There's getting the operators on board is a big aspect of it, and it's been very encouraging to see their appreciation for the additional tools that they're given and for their additional knowledge bank. As far as pitfalls, I would say kind of being aware of what you're getting with your software. We've appreciated how Pico's been able to kind of adjust to what our specific needs are. And there are some other companies that we looked at that really kind of had one software package off the shelf, and then everything else that you might need was kind of an additional charge. Pico had a fantastic base package, so to speak. And then, we've needed an add-on or two, especially with our ERP integration. But otherwise, we haven't incurred a whole bunch of additional charges every time we want to integrate a tool or every time we need a minor change.
Okay. All right. Well, that was a really fast 30 minutes. Thank you, gentlemen, for a great presentation. That is all the time we have for questions. So please join me in thanking Ryan and Greg for their presentation, as well as our sponsor, Pico MES. If you have additional questions or comments, don't hesitate to click the email us button on the console. And as you exit today's webinar, please take a few minutes to complete our survey. Please visit webinars.assemblymag.com to see the recording of this presentation, as well as to get information about our upcoming events. We have webinars coming up on collaborative robots, Cartesian robots, ERP software, and the Toyota production system. So I think you're going to want to check those out. One more thing, go to the assembly show and visit Pico MES and see demos of their software live in person, and that's end of October in Rosemont, Illinois, right next to O'Hare Airport. So, folks, until next time, keep after it.